I wanted to talk about this transmission and the way and equations I've used to figure out what rear end to use on this car. So the ultimate goal for my car, my 75 Corvette, besides making my wife way more attracted to me, I want to build a car that's going to drive all 48 states. And that's my main goal. I want to try to hit the Florida Keys with it. I couldn't do that. Well, I probably could have done that with the L48 and the M20 4-speed. The problem is when I was at 80 miles an hour, 80 miles per hour, the RPMs were at somewhere between 34 and 36, 3,700. So what I want to be able to do is just cruise at lower RPMs at interstate speed. Idaho, Utah, Montana, the speed limit, the interstate speed limits are 80 miles per hour, but they're not great for these older cars that were meant to drive on 55 mile per hour roads. So at 55 and 60, that M20 and that L48, they were fantastic all day long. But when you're getting up into 70, 75, and 80, it's a little bit taxing on the engine. So I've had quite a bit of experience trying to figure out gear ratios and trying to understand gears. And I think we all kind of have this. If you're a car guy, yeah, we all kind of have this in our lives. My first experience was when in 2005, I bought a 1994 Corvette. It was red. I called it Rufus. It was a 6-speed. And I bought Rufus down in Utah, and about 3.5 hours away. My wife and I drove down to Utah and picked up Rufus, and on our way home, what I noticed was I was going 65 and 70, and I was passing everybody. My speedometer in Rufus was broken, and so it was significantly off. So I pulled up some equations, and I tried to figure out my my speed. And I did that from my tire size versus the RPM. Since then, I have put some larger tires on Jeeps. I've put some larger tires on my truck. And where I use this absolutely every other month is in dirt bikings. That's where I use it most in my life. The other part where I used it with the Corvette is with Rufus was I had a chart where I marked down certain RPMs and what speed I would be going, so I knew I wasn't breaking the speed limit excessively. And then in my truck came with tiny tires, and I put 31-inch tires on it. I can see now that the tire difference results in 5% increase, so my mileage and my speedometer are off by 5%. This transmission, I just want to show you what is on this tag and what is on some transmissions and some transfer cases. They give us some good information to kind of determine how to figure out what we want for our end gearing. If you can see right here, this tag has a couple of things on it. As you can see, part number, here's the model of the transmission, S640. It's known as a ZF6. So what we're talking about here today is this number. So what this first number is first gear. My first gear is really low, 2.68. So every time the engine turns once, the output gear on this transmission is turning 2.68 times. This is my 6th gear. So every time the engine has 1 revolution, this transmission in 6th gear will turn a half a revolution. And that is insane. I can tell you how to figure out speed at what RPM. And when I was trying to figure out what to do with this Corvette and what rear end do I want to put in it. Right now it has a 336 rear end. So this car allows you a 2.68 is a pretty low first gear. So that means I'm going to reach 5,500 and I will only be around Well, it's on this chart, but I'm just going to take a wild guess while I'm talking to you. It's going to be around 4,500 RPM, maybe 5,000 RPM. I'll hit, 45 to 50 miles per hour. So here is the way to figure out what's on this chart and determine what your output's going to be in first gear and what your output's going to be every gear, but also in your last highest gear. Most fourth gears are a 1-to-1 ratio, and then anything over 1-to-1 is called overdrive. My problem that I'm having now is I have a 336 differential, and if I use that and I go into sixth gear with this gearing and that gearing, I'm hitting like 80 miles per hour at 1600 RPM. And I don't know if my engine will be powerful enough to keep that momentum up. So I don't know at that point if sixth gear is even usable until I'm going 100 or something. So I want to readjust and figure out what is going to be the most efficient and what's going to put me into the power band where I can at least cruise, and if I have to pass somebody in sixth gear, I can lay it down and go. Let's look at these tires and learn what these mean. So 285, 40, 18. This tire, well, let's pretend it's a 285, 40 R18. The R18 is the distance of the wheel. The 285 is the width of the tire in millimeters. You take 285, and I have to convert it to centimeters, and then I have to convert that to inches. So 285 millimeters to centimeters is 28.5 centimeters. There's 2.54 centimeters in an inch, so you have to divide 28.5 by 2.54. I can't do that number in my head. It's going to be some 10-ish, 11-ish range is my guess. And that's what it is in inches, 10 or 11 inches wide. Now let's talk about what does the 40 mean. So the 40 means the sidewall from the lip to the top, the sidewall is 40% of 200, it's 40% of the width. What you need to do is take 285 and you times that by 40%, and that gives you the number in millimeters from here to the sidewall top. And that's how you determine the height of the sidewall. This is a 205 over 70 R15. So let's work just how we did. 15 inches from here to the wheel width. So this fits on a 15-inch wheel. So let's just measure for fun. It's from here to there. The skin of the top of the tire is 20.5 centimeters or 205 millimeters. So that's what that number means. From here, from this line where the tread starts, over to this line where the tread starts is 20.5 centimeters. Now we need to know the height. 70% of 20.5. And roughly that's going to be 140 something, right? So, or 14 point something centimeters. So let's measure from the top of the sidewall to the wheel face, 140.5. 140, it would be like 143, wouldn't it? It's something, because that is 70% of 205. So now let's talk about why all of that is relevant for what we're doing. Or if I'm in top gear and I'm trying to figure out what's my RPM, and my RPM's at 2000, what's going to be my speed? So I do this equation up, and then I can plug and play rear end gearing and find out exactly how I want it to run. So now that we understand what the sidewall is, I have to add that sidewall in inches. I have to convert it to inches and add it to the 18-inch rim. And then I have to add it not only to here, but I have to add it to here also. So I take that sidewall and I times it by 2 because I have one here and one here. And that will give me the full diameter of the tire. And why that's important to me is I need the diameter to figure out the circumference. The circumference is the entire distance from the tire from this point all the way back to this point. And that tells me every time the engine turns once, how many times is the tire turning once? That tells me my speed. And then I throw the gears into that equation. I throw the distance into that equation. So we're talking miles per hour. So I need miles. I need to figure out how many times does this roll per mile. I have to figure out how many times does the engine turn per mile. So I got a lot of maths to be doing. So to figure out circumference real quick, I need the diameter of the tire times pi. The circumference of a 285 by 40 R18 tire is somewhere around 82 to 84 inches. So now that I know the circumference of the tire, I can figure out gearing and what I need in gears and what I can expect with this car. I can plug in engine RPM times tire circumference times minutes per hour, which is 60. So eliminate the hour and you have engine RPM times tire circumference times 60. And you take all of that, you figure it out, and then at the bottom, you divide that number by your transmission gear. So you can plug in a first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear, fifth gear. You can plug in any gear. You can, so it's transmission gear times your differential gearing times a mile in inches. A mile in inches is 63,360. You multiply transmission gear by your differential gearing by 63,360. You come up with that number. And then you divide your top number by that giant number, and that gives you miles per hour at that RPM in that gear. And you can see all of that in this chart where I have just taken miles per hour in that gear and I've fleshed it all out so I can go up to 8,000 RPM in each gear and I can know how fast my car is going to be traveling. And then I've done it so I can plug any tire in, any differential in, and I can kind of sort out where my comfort zone is and where I'm going to get the most efficiency from my engine. It benefits for off-roading. You have bigger tires on, like my Jeep has 37-inch tires on it. If I'm going to put a 410 in it, which is in it now, what's that going to do me for first gear? Can I go slower with high RPM and get myself in that torque band to get over obstacles? Or am I going to need to gear it higher? And I can do a reduction transmission that gives me the benefit of all this. Anyway, what I thought might be helpful to talk about for any of you that are trying to figure out gearing for the first time like I'm trying to do. This is the equation to use. I've been using that spreadsheet for literally since 2005 when I had Rufus. I've just kind of kept it around. I modified it a little bit over the years so I can simplify things. I created one for my dirt bike so I can really simplify things. I can just throw in a front sprocket or a rear sprocket, tooth change, and know exactly right then where am I going to be at in the power band. Hope you enjoyed this video. So thanks for watching.